The chapel smelled of fresh roses and polished wood as I stood facing Lily, her hands trembling slightly in mine. Golden afternoon light streamed through stained glass, casting jewel-toned patterns across her ivory wedding dress. This was supposed to be my fresh start, the moment when my past finally released its grip on me. "Repeat after me," the officiant said, his voice warm with ceremony. I opened my mouth to speak my vows when I felt the disturbance before I saw it. A ripple through the crowd, the sudden tension in Jason's posture beside me, then the unmistakable click of designer heels on hardwood. Sarah. She stood framed in the arched doorway like a specter from my worst memories. Time had sharpened her features, her cheekbones more pronounced, her once flowing dark hair now cut into an angular bob. The black cocktail dress was too formal, too severe, a deliberate contrast to the pastel wedding colors. 3 years. 3 years since I'd last seen her storm out of the courthouse after our divorce was finalized. 3 years of therapy sessions and panic attacks whenever my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Lily's grip tightened. "Daniel?" Her whisper was laced with concern. Sarah took a slow step forward, her blood-red lips curved in that familiar smirk that always preceded emotional warfare. The guest nearest the aisle recoiled as if she carried something contagious. My mother gasped audibly, her hand flying to her pearls. The carefully reconstructed walls of my composure began to crumble. My pulse roared in my ears, drowning out the officiant's words. Every muscle tensed. Part of me wanted to physically remove her, while another part feared what poisonous words might come out of that perfectly made-up mouth. Jason leaned in, his voice low. "I'll handle this." Before he could move, Sarah's laugh cut through the chapel like shattered glass. "Oh, Danny," she purred, using that pet name I'd once loved. "You didn't actually think I'd miss your happy ending, did you?" The venue coordinator rushed in, flustered. She refused to show an invitation. The stained glass patterns on the floor seemed to shift and warp as my vision tunneled. Lily's breathing turned shallow beside me, her nails biting into my palm. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I registered that this perfect moment, this hard-won redemption I'd fought so desperately for, was unraveling before my eyes. And the cruelest part? Sarah was smiling. The chapel fell into a stunned silence, the kind that presses against your eardrums. Every eye was locked on Sarah as she took another step forward, her designer heels sinking into the plush aisle runner. I could smell her perfume now, that same vanilla and jasmine scent she'd worn during our marriage, now thick and cloying in the air. Lily turned fully toward the interruption, her veil catching the light as it swayed. "Who is nobody?" I said too quickly, my voice rough. "Just stay here." I released Lily's hands and moved toward Sarah before Jason could intercept. The guests parted like the Red Sea as I approached her. Up close, I could see the fine lines around her eyes that makeup couldn't quite conceal, the slight tremor in her manicured hands. "What the hell are you doing here?" I kept my voice low, but the words came out jagged. Sarah's smile didn't reach her eyes. "You look good in a tux." She reached out to adjust my tie, a gesture so intimate it made my skin crawl. I caught her wrist before she could touch me. "You don't get to do that anymore," I said. Her facade flickered. For just a second, I saw something raw beneath the polished exterior. Regret? Loneliness? Then it was gone, replaced by that familiar, calculated coolness. "I heard you were getting remarried," she said lightly, as if discussing the weather. "I just wanted to see it for myself. The great Daniel Hart, moving on so completely." Behind me, Lily spoke up. "Daniel?" Her voice was steady, but I heard the hurt simmering beneath. Sarah's gaze slid past me to Lily, and her expression hardened. "Oh, she's pretty. Younger, too. How predictable." That did it. "Get out," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "Now." Sarah's lips parted like she wanted to say more, but then Jason was there, his bulk a solid wall between us. "Ma'am," he said in his best security guard voice, "you need to leave." For a long moment, Sarah just stared at me, her dark eyes searching for something. Forgiveness? A reaction? Then, with a shrug that was too casual to be genuine, she turned on her heel. I hope she knows what she's getting into, she tossed over her shoulder. The chapel doors swung shut behind her with a finality that should have been satisfying. But as I turned back to Lily, to the ruined moment and the concerned faces of our guests, all I felt was a sickening sense of déjà vu. Lily's eyes were bright with unshed tears. We can still do the vows, she said, trying to smile. I took her hands again, but they felt different now, colder. The words of my carefully written vows dried up in my throat, because Sarah had done what she came to do. She'd left. But she'd taken the joy of the moment with her. The reception hall's crystal chandeliers threw fractured light across the dance floor as Lily and I took our first turn as husband and wife. Her hand felt stiff in mine, her smile too tight at the corners. Around us, guests pretended not to stare, their champagne flutes clutched like protective talismans. Should we cut the cake early? Lily whispered through her smile. I nodded, my eyes scanning the room's exits. Every dark-haired woman in the crowd made my pulse jump. The string quartet's rendition of Can't Help Falling in Love suddenly sounded mocking. The cake knife trembled in my grip as we posed for photos. Flashbulbs popped like tiny detonations. When the sugary slice touched my lips, I tasted nothing. Jason materialized at my elbow. She's gone, he murmured. Drove off in an Uber. Lily's cousin intercepted us with 2 flutes of champagne. To new beginnings, she chirped. The bubbles burned going down. Across the room, my mother dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. Not happy tears. These were the same worried dabs she'd made during my divorce hearings. The DJ announced our first dance. As I pulled Lily close, her body stiffened slightly before melting against mine. I'm sorry, I said into her hair. She leaned back to study my face. For what? You didn't invite her. But guilt curdled in my stomach anyway, because some traitorous part of me had wondered, had Sarah come alone? Was she still living in that overpriced downtown loft? Did she ever... Lily's fingernails bit into my shoulder. You're shaking. The song ended too soon. Guests clapped with forced enthusiasm. When the DJ invited others to join the dance floor, the crowd surged forward gratefully, eager to drown the awkwardness in Motown beats. I excused myself to the men's room. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as I braced my hands on the sink. My reflection looked unfamiliar. The tuxedoed stranger in the mirror had dark circles under his eyes. The door swung open. Jason leaned against the tile wall. You okay, man? I splashed water on my face. She wanted to get in my head, and it worked. Jason handed me a paper towel. Don't let her win twice. When I returned to the reception, Lily was laughing at something the florist said. The sight punched me in the chest, her resilience, the way she'd already straightened her spine and carried on. I crossed the room in 10 quick strides. Cradling her face in my hands, I kissed her properly for the first time as her husband, the taste of champagne and vanilla frosting, the warm solidity of her body against mine. Sarah's ghost still hovered at the edges of the room, but for this one perfect moment she didn't matter. The hotel suite door clicked shut behind us, muting the last echoes of our wedding reception. Lily's bouquet tumbled onto the dresser, scattering petals across the polished wood. The silence between us felt heavy, loaded, like the moment before a storm breaks. I loosened my tie, the silk suddenly suffocating. I should explain. Lily held up a hand, her engagement ring catching the dim light. Not tonight. Her voice was quiet but firm as she stepped out of her heels, leaving them abandoned near the closet. Tonight is still ours. She moved to the window, her silhouette framed against the city lights. The train of her wedding dress pooled around her like liquid ivory. I wanted to memorize this moment, the curve of her bare shoulders, the way her hair still held traces of its earlier updo, but Sarah's words kept echoing in my skull. I hope she knows what she's getting into. I crossed the room, my dress shoes sinking into the plush carpet. When I reached for Lily's waist, she leaned back into me with a sigh. We stood like that for a long moment, watching the pulse of traffic far below. You never told me she was that beautiful, Lily finally said. The observation startled me. Sarah's polished appearance had always been weaponized, each highlight and contour carefully applied for maximum impact. Lily's beauty was different, softer, more genuine, the kind that didn't need to announce itself. She's just a person, I said, pressing my lips to Lily's temple. One who doesn't matter anymore. Lily turned in my arms, her her palms flat against my chest. She mattered enough to show up today. Her thumbs brushed my lapels, avoiding my eyes. Did you ever think about taking her back? The question hit like a physical blow. I cupped her face, forcing her to meet my gaze. Never, not for 1 second. The truth was more complicated, of course. There had been nights early in our separation when loneliness nearly drove me to answer her drunken calls, moments of weakness where I'd typed out texts I always deleted. But that version of me, the broken, desperate one, felt like a stranger now. Lily searched my face, her dark eyes reflecting the city's glow. Then she nodded once and reached behind her back for her zipper. Help me out of this? As the dress pooled at her feet, I traced the freckles scattered across her shoulders, constellations I'd mapped countless times before. Her skin was warm under my fingertips, real in a way that memories could never be. Later, as we lay tangled in the hotel sheets, Lily's breathing evened into sleep. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the minibar and the occasional siren wailing in the distance. Sarah had tried to tarnish this day, but she'd failed. The realization settled over me like a weight lifting. Whatever power she'd once held over me was gone, reduced to nothing more than a bitter aftertaste, already fading. I pulled Lily closer, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, something floral and clean with no trace of jasmine or betrayal. Outside, the first hints of dawn tinted the sky. Tomorrow we'd leave for our honeymoon. Tomorrow the questions would come. But tonight, this fragile, perfect night, was ours. The resort phone's shrill ring shattered our first morning as newlyweds. Lily groaned into her pillow as I fumbled for the receiver, my mouth still thick with sleep. "Mr. Hart?" The concierge's voice dripped with false cheer. "A delivery for you at the front desk." I squinted at the clock, 7:02 a.m. "We didn't order anything." "It appears to be champagne, sir, with a note." The mattress shifted as Lily sat up, the sheet pooling around her waist. "What is it?" she asked, voice still husky from sleep. I swallowed hard. Nothing important. But my bare feet were already moving across the cool tile floor. The walk to the lobby felt endless, each step tightening the knot in my stomach. The champagne bottle sat gleaming on the reception desk, Dom Perignon, Sarah's favorite. The card beside it bore familiar handwriting, "For old time's sake." S. My fingers trembled as I crumpled the note. The concierge's smile faltered. "Is everything—" "Throw it away," I snapped, then immediately regretted my tone. Back in our suite, Lily stood at the balcony railing, her robe fluttering in the ocean breeze. She didn't turn when I slid the glass door shut behind me. Was it her? The directness of the question startled me. I joined her at the railing, the rising sun painting her profile in gold. "How did you—" "Because I know you," she said simply. "And I know people like her never really let go." Below us, turquoise waves lapped at pristine sand, a perfect morning, already tainted. Lily turned to face me, her eyes searching mine. "This is what she wants, Daniel. To live rent-free in our heads during what should be the happiest week of our lives." I reached for her hand, relieved when she didn't pull away. "I'll call the front desk. Tell them to refuse any more deliveries." But as we dressed for breakfast, I caught Lily studying her reflection a beat too long, adjusting the neckline of her sundress. The realization hit me like a punch. Sarah had already won this round. Not because of some expensive champagne, but because she'd made my wife doubt herself. The resort restaurant buzzed with morning chatter. Over papaya and coffee, Lily's phone buzzed with a text. Her fork clattered against her plate when she saw the screen. "What?" I reached across the table. She turned the phone toward me. An unknown number had sent a single photo. Sarah lounging poolside at this very resort 3 years ago, my arm slung carelessly around her bare shoulders. The caption read, "Some traditions deserve repeating." Lily's knuckles whitened around her phone. "She's here." I nearly overturned the breakfast table, lunging for Lily's phone. The image burned into my retinas. Sarah's smug smile, my own oblivious grin, the infinity pool glittering behind us. A relic from a life I'd worked so hard to escape. "Let me handle this." My voice came out strangled. Lily's fingers trembled as she swiped the photo away. "She's here?" At our honeymoon resort? The hurt in her eyes cut deeper than any accusation. I flagged down a waiter. Get the manager. Now. While we waited, Lily scrolled through her messages with mechanical precision. This number isn't saved. How did she... Her breath hitched. Daniel, did you tell her where we were staying? Of course not. The denial erupted too loudly. Several diners turned to stare. The manager arrived, his crisp uniform and practiced smile doing little to mask his discomfort as I explained the situation. His expression darkened when I showed him the photo. I'll have security review our guest list immediately, he promised. If she's registered under another name... Lily stood abruptly, her napkin fluttering to the floor. I need air. I found her 10 minutes later on a secluded stretch of beach, hugging her knees to her chest. The ocean breeze tugged at her hair as I sank into the sand beside her. This isn't your fault, she said before I could speak, but I need to know, did you ever bring other women here after your divorce? The question blindsided me. This was ours, just ours. A tear tracked down her cheek. Then why does it feel like we're swimming in her shadow? In the distance, a resort employee approached, his walkie-talkie crackling. My stomach clenched. They'd found something. Lily wiped her face with the back of her hand. When she spoke again, her voice was steel. Whatever they say, we're not changing our plans. We're not hiding. And we're definitely not letting her win. The security chief's walkie-talkie crackled as he approached us on the beach. Mr. Hart, we've identified your ex-wife. She checked in yesterday under her maiden name, Sarah Wexler. Lily's fingers dug into my arm. What room? Bungalow 14, he said, near the spa. I knew that bungalow, private plunge pool, ocean view. Sarah always booked the best. We can have her removed, the chief offered. Lily surprised me by shaking her head. Number I want to see her face when security arrives. The walk to Bungalow 14 felt like marching toward a tribunal. Palm fronds whispered overhead as we followed the security team down the crushed shell path. My dress shirt clung to my back, damp with more than tropical heat. We rounded the final bend. The bungalow's teak door stood ajar, curtains billowing through the gap. Ms. Wexler? The chief knocked firmly. Silence. He pushed the door open. The room was pristine, bed made, towels folded. Only two signs someone had been there, an open bottle of champagne sweating on the nightstand, and a single sheet of hotel stationery placed squarely on the pillow. I didn't need to read it to know what it said. Lily snatched the note first. Her lips moved silently as she scanned the message. Then she held it out to me, her hand steady now. You always were predictable. Enjoy your honeymoon, Danny. I know I enjoyed mine. Below the text, a checkout time was printed in crisp hotel font, 6:47 a.m., 2 hours before the champagne arrived at our door. Lily's laugh startled me, sharp, humorless. She was never here at all. The security chief radioed for confirmation. Yes, a Sarah Wexler had checked in yesterday. Yes, she'd left before sunrise. No, they hadn't noticed anyone taking photos. I stared at the abandoned champagne bottle, its contents barely touched. Sarah's signature move, make an entrance, stir the pot, vanish before consequences hit. Lily crumpled the note. Let's go swimming,